And welcome to Soul Empowerment. I am Nancy and here together with David. We are here to share, inspire, support, encourage, and give you some fresh perspective on all things doing with life mastery, learning how to handle and deal and tend to your deep essence, which is you, which is me, which is all of us. What I do when I'm not doing soul empowerment is I enjoy working in person, teaching a lot of mind body classes. When I'm not doing that, I work as a life and well-being coach, and I do writing and I do some shows such as with David. So everything I'm doing is constantly connected to me growing and developing my soul to really live fully and beautifully. And our show is just a beautiful extension of that. And today's show is about kind of working with your heart, learning how to live from that place of tending and caring without over caring to the point where you are just filled with stress and angst. And I'm going to let David introduce himself and share a little bit with you.
Well, hi, Nancy. It's great to be here again. I really do love doing these shows. I think that, in the world that we're living in, creating any opportunity for more love and less fear is something that is, I think, valuable and important and needs to be done to the maximum extent possible. So it's always an honor for me to be here. I love doing this work. And in particular, I notice, I'm really very active in the wellness universe now. Mm-hmm. I have found, what I consider to be a home for the kind of work I like to do. Wow. And, the wellness universe is a really, really amazing, beautiful place for meeting all kinds of wonderful coaches, authors, poets, speakers, writers, just like Nancy and me. And so it's a real blessing to be here. And as Nancy said, today we're talking about awakening that heart, that fearlessness within ourselves in a way that allows us to show up authentically and to be as real and magnificent as possible. And that's really what our entire program is all about. We have these soul empowerment conversations once a month, and they're really designed to just kind of give you a dose of, love, a dose of support, a dose of, empowerment. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So,
I'm glad to be here too. And just a little shout out. If you are, again, wanting a place to be supported, heard, whether you are a health and wellness practitioner or professional, or just somebody that's working to grow and deepen your journey, I strongly, lovingly encourage and recommend sign up and become a member of the Wellness Universe. I have never looked back since I have. I've met David through our in-person events, and we both co-wrote the first book together, and David has gone on to do more. So I just strongly encourage you to get off the fence and do something good for your own journey, and what you give to you will give to others, and doing it fearlessly. So
exactly.
Right.
And I like that. The word fearless. I think it's a powerful word unto itself. I think that, many people imagine there is no possible way to be 100% fearless. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. I mean, after all, fear is mostly the domain of our ego minds. The fear is the kind of thing that our ego mind is constantly attached to and is finding problems in the world and all the rest of that. But what is the antidote to fear? I don't know that we can ever completely silence the ego mind and eliminate fear altogether. But one thing we can do is we can bolster ourselves and bring courage and face that fear as if the fear didn't really exist. I think that's what we're talking about here. And so what do you think about that, Nancy?
Well, I agree with you that how many of us live with a residual background that we're not even aware of giving fear the threshold to decide for us what to do or not do, how to do it or not do it, what direction or no direction. I know a great point of my life unbeknownst to me and then known, was I lived in fear of being found out, discovered. Oh my gosh, fear of losing out, fear of missing out, fear of doing it wrong, fear of what if. And
Right.
I didn't know all this undercurrent existed. And when I began to know about the whole process of fear and the emotionality of it, then I had the ability to bring it into my life, take a good look at what it was and wasn't, and to have a place of balance to know that, okay, I'm feeling, quote, fearful or fearing, but it's nothing more than that. So I'm going to move forward. I know that maybe that's an open door for me to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were proposing this in terms of the concept of caring for other people, which implies that we're dealing with relationship here. We're talking about how can we be supportive and caring and loving for another person while at the same time making sure that we don't lose ourselves in the process. And that is really what I think we're most afraid of. If you think about your deepest fear, no matter what that fear might be, if you take it, there's an exercise that I do with some of my clients, and I'll just say, so what are you afraid of? And I'll get an answer. I'm afraid that, I'm going to lose my job or something like that, whatever the truth might be in the moment. And then I say, okay, now that's a very real possibility. You might indeed lose your job. But suppose that does happen. What are you really afraid of if you lose your job? That's even more scary than that. And what happens is I find that people go deeper and deeper and deeper until eventually they get down to just about the lowest possible level they can get. And the fear then is, I'm afraid that I'm going to die alone and no one will ever remember me. I'm going to disappear into a void of non-existence. That's ultimately what we're afraid of. And if you think about that, that is a fear that comes from your ego mind. Your ego mind is the component that's actually afraid to disappear and cease to exist. From a spiritual aspect that you are an ongoing, timeless, boundless, endless being of light and love. You already know that, even if you haven't necessarily come to the full awareness of it because your ego mind's chattering so much about it. But that's the ultimate truth of who you are. Therefore, there is no way you're ever going to disappear and not be in existence in one form or another. So the fear is unfounded, even though it feels very real. Even though it feels in the body, you can feel that clutching sensation in your body when that happens. And that's what I have noticed about it. What's your experience with that, Nancy?
Well, I've noticed a continuation of what you said, that also when I'm clutched by fear, I like fear makes you think that if I'm fearful, then I'm in control because I am really, quote, aware of all of these different things that I could be missing out on or what could happen or possibilities. So that, quote, I'm in absolute control. I'm going to make sure, I go out of my way to stop something, initiate something, keep it as is. And that level of control then with fear and control, you are closing the door on living in the moment and bringing in a sense of balance, joy, and really learning so much more. Fear and control to me go hand in hand. And I'm working on that now with a situation that has come up. And it's like, yeah, what's at the core of me wanting to feel that I need to be in control and supposedly have the best well-meaning understanding, advice, guidance, support. What is it that I wanting to apply that and run that energy through? It's based on, again, scarcity, and it's based on wanting to handle something that's maybe not mine. And there's an absence there of balance and just life of joy, of peace. So that is what's been moving in through my life. And I think it's a cornerstone, as you brought on, that fear is ego. it's not taking a full look at what is, and you're extending the hand of thinking that we're in control of wanting to be having that with everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned control. I know that the ego mind loves to be in control. That is true.
Mhm.
And obviously, there are circumstances, events, conditions, and so forth that are completely beyond our control, no matter how much we imagine we have control. It's and I can also see the connection between fear and control, because if I'm afraid that something is going to happen due to, you know, whatever my ego mind is telling me, then I'm naturally going to fall into a pattern of trying to prevent that from happening,
Yes.
or trying to control it, trying to control all the circumstances, even though that is a lost cause. There's no way for me to actually control everything. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I find so you just opened up a thought. Yes. The more, quote, the more I want to control things, that is a complete invitation and being with fear. Control to me, that I now know, is fear.
Right.
Fear, and it doesn't have to be a negative, like, oh my gosh, the world's going to end fear, but it can come from a place of love. But with all these conditions and expectations that bind it up and place a lower level of energetic frequency that leads to stagnation, being stuck, and not being able to fully come up with what was meant to be or a solution.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing that comes up, you mentioned scarcity here a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very true, because that's what really fear is all about. If I think, for example, that a bad thing is going to happen, then I am also thinking, without maybe being conscious of it, that there isn't enough of something to prevent that thing from happening. There isn't enough of something to, whatever it is it might be. For example, I'm going to lose my job. I might have the unconscious belief underneath that there are no jobs available, that I'll never find another job, that I will go hungry, that my family will starve, and all the rest of that. Those are just made up stories that are probably about 98% or 99% untrue. They're complete fabrications. And yet you can see where that notion, that idea, oh, there aren't enough jobs, therefore there's no way I'm going to get a job. You see, you're creating this illusion of scarcity where none exists. If you truly want a job, you will find one. And it may not be exactly what you imagine that you would be doing. And I don't know how many times I've had to change into jobs that really weren't the ideal for me, but I'd move to something new, and that would lead to another opportunity. And that's the whole point that we're trying to make here, is if you allow yourself to get stuck in the fear, then you're not even going to look at opportunities. You're going to imagine that the opportunities don't exist, so you're not even going to see them when they show up.
Yes. That's the veil. That's the ego mind, the veil that releasing from that can, add or not add. I'm going to I'm going to turn my mail off. Pardon me for a moment. Keep talking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's anyway. Well, one thing there's no lack of is mail. You're getting plenty of that.
Right?
Plenty of mail.
I will share with you. Maybe that's why this topic, I think that's why when we were working on what to discuss, I'm in the process of change, and things that have occurred at my doorstep, quote, without me having a hand in, and things that I do have a hand in. And I realize, as you were sharing today, that there's a level of me thinking that I'm in control, so therefore I need to choose wisely, which is, yes, I do want to choose wisely and be mindful of that. And mindfulness is one of the antidotes that provides that. So I'm in a process in my life with making decisions about what's the next best step for things that are taking place in me. And I realize now that there's fear of the unknown. Well, if I leave what I know, even though it may not be quite the best for me, I might miss out. Again, what will replace what I know? Could I be leaving thinking that, oh, everything's going to go well, and then what if it doesn't? Oh my gosh, now I've boxed my way into nothingness. Well, of course that's not true, because as you said, anytime you've moved into a place, maybe it wasn't, quote, the ideal place. Had you not done that, you wouldn't have moved into the opportunities and the energy that were meant for you. Had you not moved from A to B to C, how could you have known? And
Right.
at the head of that is that ego mind covered with control, which is all in the blanketing of fear. And it doesn't have to be like a fear for my life, but it's just that, again, am I going to miss out? Am I going to lose something? What will happen? Yeah, so that keeps us stuck and stagnant. So that's I'm making decisions right now about the state of the work that the fitness classes I teach. What is the best step for me to release some of that and other things in order to move into a whole new energy field and season.
Right. And what you're talking about here is just a continuation of some of the things that we've already said. This idea of, well, what is being stuck? Well, that's really nothing more than a belief that there is no space for me to move. There is nowhere for me to go. In other words, it's again about absence of something. It's about scarcity. I think almost every fear can be traced back to a scarcity of something. And ultimately, what is the most important thing that we might be afraid of losing but love? If love, if you look at it, just take everything down to the lowest level, ultimately all fear is an absence of love, or a belief in the absence of love. Or that I can't get love, or that I am not lovable, or that I'm not worthy, or any of those associated beliefs that ultimately boil down to the same thing. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. It doesn't matter what I do. It'll never be enough. Those kinds of stories that we have in our mind imply that a lack of something, it never being enough, means there's not something out there that I can reach for. You see? And of course, then we have the other side of it, where we're talking about outside of me.
Yeah.
The external. And that's a completely different discussion.
Right? Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah, there's so much to our story of living the life with fearlessness, in terms of really all the intense, beautiful living we will receive when we are able to see and understand what fear is, how it plays out in our own each unique life, and what does it mean to live fearlessly? Does that mean, again, that we don't care, that we have to disconnect, disassociate? No. It means that we are broadening our expanse of what it means to deeply care for ourselves by detaching from, being controlled or controlling, and letting things play out. That is a life lesson I will be working on and until the end of time, is this interplay with control. And then another little thing that comes into that, which is that lovely word, the codependency family, the family of codependency, because that's fear and control as well. And the good news with all of this is, like, if you're feeling that, wow, I always live in scarcity and lack and codependent and it'll never change. Well, of course it's not true. if you're listening today or later, and I know from your journey, David, and mine, that we were able at the right time when it was meant to begin to see these little openings and seek to explore them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a great gift, actually.
Mm-hmm. It definitely has. So then there's the other thing is the connection of control and fear to living more carefree and fearlessly. And how do we bring in care to that? I think people think if we release and let go of things, we are not being responsible or caring, when
Yeah.
not the case either.
That's a really good point. I noticed that I have started to incorporate a lot of "I don't care" in my vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I know that I don't mean that what you tell me is not important. I don't mean that I don't care what you think. What I really mean is what you think of me or my life isn't going to change how I show up. I'm open to your feedback. If you see something that really I need to, that maybe would be helpful for me to change something, I'm open to that feedback. But any feedback that you have for me is really all about you anyway. It might be helpful to me because remember, this is one of the things about interaction between human beings. We are always projecting onto each other.
Oh, yes.
So when I see something in you that irritates the hell out of me, it's not because you are irritating. It's because there's something in me that I haven't yet dealt with that gets irritated as a result of the behavior that I'm witnessing in you. So technically, if I am to offer you feedback about that and say something like, when I see you do X, Y, Z, I feel this thing inside. Well, guess what? That's wonderful for me to become aware of. But many people say, I want you to stop doing X, Y, Z so I don't have to feel that thing. Well, that's not the way life works. And if you look at the way our entire political system has been going for the last, I don't know how many years, it's like, I want you to stop saying what you say so that I don't have to worry about, having hurt feelings. Hey, I'm sorry, that's just not the way it works. The way it works is I will say something because that's, part of who I am, and it's a reflection of who I am being in this moment. And if you don't like that, maybe it's time for you to start looking inside and see what it is about that issue that is triggering you. It's time for you to take responsibility for your own triggers and to deal with them in whatever way you can. So maybe when I say I don't care what you think, what I really mean to say is I thank you and I do care what you think, and I am going to continue to live my life according to what's true for me, regardless of what you think. That is a more accurate statement. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I'm choosing to take responsibility for my own reaction to whatever it is you do. I take responsibility for that. And if I feel that there's some feedback that might be useful for you, then I'll share it with you.
That's well said. And that is a life mastery skill that is one that is become aware of, and you begin to slowly develop that, some faster, some slower. I think in the beginning of my journey, I had no clue. Like you, I took it for face value. Well, boy, I don't like being around that person. They annoy me. They bother me. They set me off. They're whatever, too talkative, too pushy, blah, blah, blah. What I didn't know was, again, how they made me feel they were mirroring things within me that were mine to work on and to resolve. That it wasn't them that was bothering me. So the thing is, well, if I don't like them, I'm not going to hang out with them. I'm going to not be in the room. I'm going to shut them down. What I didn't realize at the time when I was doing all of that busyness was that, wow, that would have been an amazing opportunity to say, well, what about their word choice, their mannerisms, their, how they conduct business? What about that is, why am I reacting to that? And then I would have had the ability then to ask a question, take the next step, go deeper and deeper into, wow, I have, okay, this area in my life does not have closure. It's one that is exposed and raw. I give myself permission to work on that and to release that. But how often do all of us, again, with everything going on, take things at face value and, again, want to push our hand out and react? That if only that person would zip their lip, disappear, find another place, then things will magically find balance. But that will never be, right? Because balance is in us.
Balance is a continuous process. And it's something, I've been thinking a lot about balance lately. I think what I prefer to find rather than balance, balance may or may not come. If I can find a way to be harmonious within whatever imbalance exists, I think that is a more beneficial place to be. That's just my perspective. But I wanted to come back to something, this is not to make you wrong or anything, but I just noticed one of your statements had to do with, you were talking about an experience that you might have had where you were saying, the way you made me feel. And so what I'd like to just point out, and this is something that I say to all my clients, nobody has the power to make you feel anything. They simply have the power to do whatever it is they do and to say whatever it is they say. And you then have the power to react in whatever way you react. So when I teach people to share in terms of offering feedback, one of the things I say is, don't ever say, you made me feel X, Y, Z. Instead, say this: when you did such and such, I had an internal reaction. And that reaction was such that I felt blah-de-blah-de-blah, whatever it might be. By doing that, you're taking a responsibility for your own internal reaction. And you're sharing with this person what that reaction did to you in terms of feeling. If you want to get really deep about it, you can say something like, and as I was going through that process, I recognized that this is what happened whenever my mom did such and such. When I was 4 years old or 5 years old, you now are owning, I recognize that I have a wound from childhood that got triggered when I watched you do that thing. So in a sense, I'm kind of projecting my mother onto you. And it's very, very powerful awareness. If you can rework your language to take full responsibility for everything, even though the other person may have deliberately tried to push your buttons, regardless of what actually happened, you still had the reaction internally, and you began to feel that way as a result of that reaction. This is really, really important stuff, and I think the whole world needs to learn how to do this.
Yes, I am taking note that there is that, I don't know if it's learned helplessness, where we were taught, I remember being taught, share your feelings, which, okay, that's great. But the next step is to say, your sharing opened the door for me to remember an incident from childhood or young adulthood. Or,
by the way, I love that. That was really nice. Your sharing opened the door for me. Now, of course, I know that I didn't actually open the door, but you felt like a door opened.
Yeah.
And that's that's a beautiful statement. I like that.
Yeah, we'll make a note of that. That is the wording choice in our self-talk dialogue and what we express out is, I am learning myself, and today is the catalyst that will allow us to explore more deeply what we give mere face value to. And another thing that I had made a little note here about caring and all of that is the ability to care or move without either attachment or detachment, without attaching to or detaching from.
Mm-hmm.
That's a learned.
Well, I like using the phrase non-attachment as opposed to either attachment or detachment. Detachment kind of implies that you're not really present and you don't give a shit. I think that non-attachment implies a high enough level of awareness that you're choosing not to be attached to a particular outcome or a particular result or anything like that. Maybe you're hoping for that outcome or result, but you know that sometimes you don't have control over all the circumstances and it may not turn out the way you want.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, what you do get out of the process, whatever kind of result does show up, are you willing to be accepting of that result, even if it isn't exactly what you want? And that's what really we're talking about here, because if you're too attached to the result you didn't get, you're never going to be able to accept what does show up. It's really, really powerful. And it's an awareness that people can learn just with a little bit of practice. That's all.
So what are some things that you work with your clients or that you've done to bring in that learning, the practice of being in that place?
I lovingly reflect what I see as being, let's say, is ineffective or dysfunctional behaviors or interactions or communication skills or that sort of thing. I'll just to give you an example. I had my son here a little while ago. He was here like 2 months ago. And he's done a lot of this work. We have done some of this work together. So I know he knows stuff. But during our conversation, he got upset with something I said. And he said, "Man, you really pissed me off." And I just said to him, I looked him right in the eye. I said, "How is that possible? How is it possible for me to piss you off?" He says, "Oh, I know I'm supposed to take responsibility and go through. I'm just making a shortcut." I said, "But do you realize that your shortcut is pointing a finger of blame at me?" And so we have to be really careful. Don't avoid speaking truth about what's going on for yourself just to use fewer words.
Okay.
And we can all learn from that one. It's so easy to say, "Oh, you're such a jerk."
Mm-hmm.
Or even worse, or even worse than that,
Oh,
or don't be so stupid.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what am I really saying when I say don't be so stupid? What I'm saying, it really is, if I pause and not react, and instead I could look at it, I could look at you and I could say, I'm noticing that what you just said created a reaction in me in which I had the judgment that it was a stupid idea. Now, what's that about for me? Well, let's see. Stupid idea. Where have I heard that before? I heard that all the time as a kid. If my mom didn't like my perspective, she wouldn't use the word stupid. She would say, "Don't be ridiculous." That was her way of doing it. But don't be stupid, or that is so stupid. It's the same thing. What I'm really saying is, I noticed my ego mind had a reaction to what you said, and that's what it came out with. And I blurted it out rather than just holding it in and noticing what was going on for myself. And that's really how this all works. If we could all raise our awareness, I'm telling you, we could heal the planet overnight.
Mm-hmm. By giving that moment of pause and reflection when you feel the trigger activation or the reaction coming on, to just press pause.
Stomp on the pause button. Yeah, that's right. I do I don't know, you've probably seen some of these. I do my Life Mastery Pearls 3 times a week now. I just create these little brief aphorisms, and I just give them out. And mostly, people might not believe this, mostly they are directed at me. They're reminders to me about how I want to live my life. And I need lots of reminders because my ego mind, in spite of all the work I've done, my ego mind is still pretty active. And I have not yet figured out how to shut it down completely.
I think that you've spoken truth for all of us.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, that's why I put those out there. They're reminders to me about how I want to show up in the world. And a lot of people respond to them. I have so many people who really like those affirmations, or not affirmations. They're just aphorisms, I guess. They're more, they're not stated in the same way as a normal affirmation would be stated, although you could convert them easily into affirmations. Mm-hmm. But anybody who's watching this, if you want to, you can subscribe to my Life Mastery Pearls website, and you can see all of the ones that I have published so far. And I'm planning to keep going with those. So
the world needs that. I know. I like to place those too, and that's basically, I think, the work that both of us are doing. How we've evolved to that. I definitely agree that things I share that are pearls of wisdom or nuggets are things that I am needing that come out of me because they're things that I am have just gone through or needing to work on, and the work of living fearlessly, finding the balance between non-attachment and caring it's daily. It has a deeper level as you learn, you are aware of and learn how to do the work of making it known to yourself what's at the core of that, reaction or blurted out statement. Then when those things come up, as if you're human, they're going to, all that you've learned, you can constantly apply it every day to rebalance yourself or get your footing back, or, okay, something from the past came up and I'm needing to, to handle this or to see it. So it's a daily, for me anyways, seems like it's almost daily, but it's good though, because as I have those tools now, instead of accepting what I used to accept as face value and taking a victim blaming mode or for me, I don't do that anymore. Occasionally, but not as.
We all slip from time to time. I don't know. I mean, we are amazing beings in our beautiful imperfections and our perfection. So yeah, you're going to slip. And the thing is, when you slip, kind of just catch yourself, give yourself a big hug and say, all right, I messed up. That's not how I want to show up. And if you really want to make a big difference in the world, if you've done that and you've said something to another person that you now realize was hurtful, go and apologize. Mm-hmm. Just go and just own it. Say, when I said that, I was in a reactive mode that had nothing to do with you. I just noticed that I had this reaction. The words came out, and then I stormed off, and I got all pissed off. This is not about you. This is about me. Now, if I were to do some deeper work on that, I might be able to tell you that, and then explain where that might have come from. But it's not about the other person, and you can just simply say, I'm really sorry for what I said. I don't promise that I will never do it again, but I do promise that I'm going to be more aware of that in the future, mm-hmm. and I'm going to try to, prevent that from happening.
Mm-hmm. And I like that. And what we've been speaking of about handling and working on non-attachment in a way to care more is also working with that, working with really learning to love ourselves, that we can also love others, but not from a controlling, fearful place. I love you so much that I want the best for you, and I'm afraid that something's going to happen and then I'm going to, and releasing that by knowing that all of life is within and out of our control. I mean, there's, again, aspects, of course, we can control, but I don't have any control over, what if my adult children are going to get in a car accident, if I'm going to, and so if I operate my life every day from fear, that wanting to control everything. Be careful. Don't go anywhere. Lock your doors. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, it also is exhausting.
Yeah.
I've got teenage sons or young adults. They drive at 4 a.m. I don't like it. It bothers me because I don't want to drive at 4 a.m. because I'm afraid. And so I project that to them, and, it just creates, the outcome, I'm not in control of it. They're going to drive when they want to. So again, it's like, oh, well, where is this bubble? Where is this fear in me that I am so afraid that something major is going to happen if they drive at 4 a.m. on this road? So it's a daily process of, oh, okay, well, maybe I just need to let go and know that life is working as it's meant to. And then I give them the gift of not being consumed or felt they are under very unhealthy control.
I think I resonate a lot with what you're talking about. I think one of the things that perhaps frightens me more than anything else is the idea that one of my children could end up dead, regardless of how that might happen.
Yeah. And,
I've often thought, would I be totally devastated? Would I fall apart? What would happen if that, I don't use the mindset, oh my God, if my kid died, I wouldn't be able to live any longer. No, I don't go there because I've done enough personal growth work that I just don't go there. But I do ask some questions. What kind of reaction would I have? And what I realize now is, because I believe that we are all divine, magnificent, spiritual beings of light and love, I know that even though my child might be physically gone from this planet, that his or her energy and spirit will continue, and does continue indefinitely. And in fact, I don't know that accident, whatever it might have been, wasn't exactly the right thing that needed to happen in order to complete that person's life journey. We just don't know. When we see other people in difficult circumstances, or what we think are difficult circumstances, we don't know for sure why they're in those circumstances. Why does a man end up losing both arms and legs in a war, only to live out the rest of his life in a wheelchair or something like that he has to get around by using his teeth? Why does he go through that? Well, often that reveals itself in the kind of inspirational behavior that person comes out with after that has happened. How many times have you seen someone who appeared to be like lost, and yet they turn out to be some of the most inspirational people on the planet, because they have chosen, it's an attitude, they have chosen to awaken their fearless heart and to just take their circumstances and say, well, this is what's happened. Now I guess I better do something different because I can't do that other thing anymore.
Yeah.
So I've got a completely different perspective. I mean, I don't want to lose any of my kids, but if they decide to leave this earthly plane before I do, I'm just going to have to accept it, and I'm going to have to love them from afar. That's kind of how I look at it now.
And that's a beautiful, that is a big way, as well as having the ability, when we are completely without control, to accept, to be accepting. Here's a good example. So my sister and I are beginning to move in a direction of more intentional care. Our parents are healthy and living alone, but they are aging and becoming more frail, and that opens the door to what's next. And then us trying to offer them advice about downsizing, moving, bringing up all the questions. But at the end of the day, they have actively chosen, not taking our advice, to stay where they're at, opening the door to positive and really impactful negative consequences. And so we've been hashing this out for probably 2 years. And finally, our last conversation was, Well, we didn't solve anything because they are not wanting to move or to do anything. And we have to give ourselves permission to have closure on this.
Right.
Simply accept what they have decided. There's absolutely, no matter how much we want this, no matter how much we love them, all the passion of best decisions, didn't matter. So it gave us closure to accept what was not ours, no matter how much we wanted it to just be in the place of. And that involves having, if you're a parent, having your child die before you. Instead of making it be, they lived wrong, I lived wrong, what happened, all of the things, lovingly accepting that which is not within our control. And that is a big deal. I mean, of course, like you, I worry, like, oh my gosh, if they drive really late at night or or drive too fast or in really bad conditions, they can get into a car wreck or they're going to get hit by another driver. And it's like, okay, so does that mean every time they get behind the wheel of a car to go somewhere, I'm going to be a mess and up in my day and give them that really weird energy? And it's not doing anybody or anything any good.
That's right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's another thing about what began our conversation about living fearlessly with the veil of fear, that is control, that is thinking you're going to miss out, or there's lack or scarcity. Is
right.
It is very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, the whole idea of living fearlessly, or having a fearless heart, I guess, is more accurate, to me is about just simply being present to what is, and being willing to accept it for what it is. And no matter what the circumstances might be, going forward. I remember in 2013, I had a car accident, and I think you've heard me talk about this before, but during the occurrence of that car accident, I basically had a situation developing where I'd fallen asleep on the freeway. Basically, it was my own fault, and I started drifting off the freeway. And the next thing I know, I'm going through all these bushes, and I actually became aware, and I could feel fear starting to grip me. But there's this voice that just came out of nowhere. I don't know where it came from, and it just said, "Relax." And it was loud. It was a booming voice. It surrounded me, and it said, "Relax." And I just kind of looked around, I guess. I mean, everything was so slowed down anyway. It was as if my awareness was looking around saying, well, I don't know who the hell you are, but it seems like a good idea. I mean, there's nothing I can do about this right now. I don't even know where I am. It's happening. Who knows? Maybe I'm going to die. I don't know. But I did. I just consciously put my hands in my lap. I closed my eyes because I didn't want to be distracted by all the stuff that was going on around me. And I just waited. It seemed like a long time. I'm sure the whole event only took, 10 seconds probably. But it felt like an eternity to me as this was going on. And the thing about it wasn't until I started climbing out of the car afterwards that I noticed the adrenaline started to rush my body. So I had I had tears coming up. I had all kinds of stuff happening. And I mean, I'm not going to go into the details, but the point I'm trying to make is this event led me to understand that sometimes letting go is the best answer. I mean, if you're gonna fall off a cliff, well, you might as well enjoy the ride.
Let go.
You might as well enjoy the ride and try not to pay attention to the sudden stop at the end. I mean, that's from what I've heard. It sounds awful to people like us who are imagining somebody falling off a cliff, but from what I've heard, people seem to understand that when the body hits with such force that the trauma knocks the life out of the body, there is no time for the brain to register the pain. There is just not enough time. So what happens is the pain you don't even notice. It just, all of a sudden you do a transition into another way of being. That's what I've heard. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like a reasonable hypothesis. And so I look at it this way. I said, if I'm going to be met with a sudden stop somewhere along the way in my life, I might as well just enjoy as much as I can until I get there, and live with as much fearlessness. In fact, I'd like to switch the word a little bit. Instead of having a fearless heart, I want to have a loveful heart.
That's beautiful. Yep. There you go.
I mean,
there's a hard talk.
yeah. Coming back to love and just trying to live as full out as possible. And what is a loveful heart? But isn't that the definition of courage right there?
Letting go of needing to, quote, feel safe or comfortable all the time as a means to not do things. Just letting go, filling up with the fact that today I got to get up on my own, able to do the show with you, teach classes before this, do work, without going in this downward spiral of what if, oh my gosh, having a loveful heart of taking stock of the little things every day that add up to the big things.
That's right. Yeah. And what's interesting, you mentioned the what if statement again. I mean, this is something we tend to do a lot. Well, what if this bad thing happens? Or what if that bad thing happens? Or what if that doesn't work out? Or most of the time, our what ifs are very negative, right? Have you ever taken a what if and says, well, what if I win the lottery? Or what if I live to be 150 years old? Or what if I am so full of love that I can't contain myself?
Yeah.
How often do we have what if statements like that? And I like to encourage people to think outside the fear box, outside the comfort zone, and think about, well, what if I did get that job? What could it mean for me? What if my child outlives me? See, instead of thinking about, well, what if he dies or something?
I really like that. So reframing our perspective from scarcity and lack into what's possible.
Yeah. Possibility. Yeah. Possibility is a powerful motivator.
Possibility, positivity. And then again, that is within our control. That is completely within our control of expanding our perspective to all that is possible, all that is potential, what we have and how that can be expanded. It is, I think we've had that training in life to have the negativity bias or that negativity, the scarcity mindset. Better hold what you've got because you just don't know. Keep it up. Save it for a rainy day. Don't spend it. Blah, 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 blah. And
that's right.
Well, thankfully, I am spontaneous at times, and thankfully, I move forward with things and don't sit in that lack or scarcity mindset. Because when I do move forward, I pretty much have always learned and grown and have gotten so much.
Right.
Fear is the sticky gunk that wants to keep us sticky. A loveful heart is light. It's whipped cream. It's a cloud.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we have to remember that darkness and light, at least in our world, have to exist together. You can't have one without the other. That's the nature of our dualistic world and our dualistic, life. Now, perhaps in the grand scheme of all that is, maybe in the ultimate truth, all there is light. All there is love. All there is truth. That's quite conceivably possible. However, from our perspective, in this physical reality that we live in, we have the dark and we have the light, and they complement each other. And in fact, without the darkness, we can't really appreciate the light. And I think vice versa to some extent. There's some real gifts in the darkness. I mean, as you know, I do a lot of shadow work with people. And shadow is, by definition, kind of in the dark, right? And what happens is we call it shadow mostly because, well, Carl Jung started the whole fad, but mostly it's because we have unconscious aspects or qualities or behaviors that we push back into the background, pretending that nobody can see them. Well, of course, that's a complete lie. You know, if I have some quality or aspect of myself that I believe I've hidden away, it's guaranteed you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to be able to say, you know, I see that little arrogant part of you.
Mm-hmm. I see that.
I don't have arrogance. I am completely arrogance free.
I'm not a perfectionist. What do you mean I need to do everything perfectly?
That's right. Exactly. So people can see it mostly because they have it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you spot it, you got it.
Ooh, there you go. That harkens back to the very beginning of our talking today, that what we say we don't like in another, or what bothers us, is what we got to process, work on, and plant in the garden of a full, abundant life and heart.
Well, that's beautiful. But another point to make is it's not only the stuff that we don't like about ourselves that we see in others, but there are qualities of ourselves that we maybe have hidden away, not because they were bad things or because we thought they were bad, but because they were too much of who we are. Too much light, too much love, too much this. And, you know, like I remember as a kid, one of the things, I used to be pretty rambunctious. I was very energetic. Well, you can probably tell that. I'm still pretty energetic. But I used to be so energetic. I'd be like bouncing off the walls. And this is before they started feeding kids sugar. So, you know, so I'd be bouncing off the walls and my mom would go nuts. Get the hell outside. I can't have that around here. You see? So that I was too much for her. So in my mind, I took the belief that, oh, that doesn't make mommy happy. So I have to tone that down. I have to find a way to shut that down. Right? And that's essentially what people do, is they'll take the good parts of themselves and shut those down too, in order so that they can be completely flat, normal, and fit in with the rest of society. And so we end up turning ourselves into cardboard cutouts. And, you know, we just have no personality whatsoever in order to avoid hurting someone's feelings. And it's just complete stupidity, you know? And so sometimes we'll see a quality in ourselves that we really would love to express, and we see someone else expressing that. And so we project, you see, onto the other person. Exactly. Or maybe I'll see a quality in you that I don't believe I have, but I would love to have. For example, maybe I really see and feel your compassion, and I think to myself, gosh, I wish I had more compassion in my life. Well, I mean, I couldn't possibly even notice that if I didn't already have the compassion to begin with. That's the point I'm trying to make. So we see the gold in other people that really is something that resides in us as well.
I love that. Well, that's a good way to conclude our show today. Seeing the gold within ourselves that we see in others and magnifying that, while applying the ability to work through our fears and control issues to arrive. Heart full of love, fearless.
Yeah. Yes. The loveful heart, or the fearless heart. It's kind of a difficult tongue twister. Loveful. Yeah.
If you want to share, I will share that for you. You were the author on the second in the book series of the Wellness Universe, the self-care of happiness. I see it behind you if you want to bring that up.
Oh yeah. Well, here's the second book right here, the Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, 25 Oh, that's the first book. 25
Yeah, I was
Tools
going to say,
for
that's the first book. There we go.
Here's the second book. I'm sorry. It's a little harder to read because it's kind of yellow. The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, 25 Tools for Happiness. So you can see, my name is right there someplace.
Nice. Well, that book is a beautiful extension of what you shared today. And I just wanted to let our viewers know that we walk our talk and talk our walk. And that is a beautiful projection of all that we've worked on.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nancy. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I want to thank everybody who was here and anyone who's watching the recording. I just want to remind you that I keep all the recordings of this on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. You can just do a search there for Soul Empowerment episodes and then just watch them all. They're all great. So
they are. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back next time
on Soul Empowerment.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.